This podcast is powered by the pros at Paschal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPaschal.com.
Phil, what's going on, man? How has Hoover, Alabama been treating you the last couple days?
It's been boring. There hasn't been anything to do. I say that actually kind of like being okay with this, because at the end of a long college baseball season, it's not that bad to have just a couple of days without much going on. So it's been bright and sunny. I've just been kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
I haven't been worried about all that much. Went to see a minor league baseball game. I know the team practiced yesterday, but that was while we were doing halftime, so I didn't go to the workout at Hoover High. And today the tournament starts, so there'll be some games to watch.
You mentioned that, halfway tongue-in-cheek, but this thing is a grind. 56, I know they didn't quite get to 56 regular season games. You can start to smell the finish line, but, give us some insight. Give the audience some insight to the grind it is, not just for you as a broadcaster, but, you see it firsthand traveling with this team. It's, I don't think people realize the mental exhaustion a season as lengthy as baseball can create.
Well, it's 15 weeks. There are no weeks off, right? I mean, every college basketball team gets at least 7 days without a game, or, a Christmas break without that. Football teams get a week, or this next year we're getting 2 weeks without a game. And there isn't any of that for baseball. I mean, the game is designed to not have byes anyway or weeks off. But it's a day-to-day process. Even on days where they're not playing, there's work that goes into preparing for the next opponent and preparing your mind and your body and trying to figure out why you might not be hitting or why your pitches aren't going where you think they ought to go. And it's just a lot of games, just look at a guy like Wehiwa Aloy, who's played every single game. He's the only one who's played every single game this year. And his body can handle it, I'm sure. But that's a lot of that's a lot of time swinging a bat, running the bases, fielding your position, especially there's a lot of travel that's gone into this over the last month for this team. They always finish on the road before Hoover and then go to Hoover, so that's just expected. But, 2 of the last 3 regular season weeks were on the road. They were in pretty high, intense environments in Kentucky and Texas A&M. And I just think I like the way that they do this. They always finish the regular season on the road and then go to Hoover and are always the first team here. So, while a lot of other teams, they'll finish their Saturday game, they'll go home, and they'll get everything together to come to Hoover. It's a travel day for them. That Sunday is a travel day for them, and then they come here and they practice, and then usually there's a game for those teams on Tuesday. I think Arkansas is one of the only teams that just relaxes on Sunday, and it's a full day, and they can't go anywhere. They can't go get swings into the cage. I talked with Hagen Smith yesterday briefly. He and his catch partner, Jake Faraday, just had to go outside to the parking lot and play catch and just to keep their arms loose. That's the daily thing that a ball player wants to do. So I think that the rest is meaningful for them right now, especially with what's ahead of them. Not just this tournament, which can be a real grind, but the postseason is, if we think the regular season is intense, and it really is, there's nothing quite like the college baseball postseason.
Phil, you mentioned Hagen there, SEC Pitcher of the Year, first team All-SEC guy, and like I said, got to be an All-American. I think people are interested in what maybe the plan is with him this week. I think there's a possibility they pitch him off next week depending on the matchup, but maybe you could give us your thoughts on what you think happens with Hagen this week if he's playing on Thursday or Friday.
Well, for one thing, there's no guarantee that there is a Friday game. They're guaranteed 2 games. Mm-hmm. So part of that may have to do with what happens tomorrow when they play either Alabama or South Carolina, because you definitely want Hagen to pitch. And he could pitch Thursday and then be on, I guess, a little extra rest, whether he would pitch the Friday after or the Saturday after. I think it's really important for them to get Brady Tigert on the mound in some capacity. And he wasn't on the travel roster last week, and he was with the team, but they just wanted him to watch and to rest and to be ready to pitch this week. Now, I don't know the role that he'll pitch in, but whatever the role is, he's going to be an important part of this team in the postseason. So will Mason Molina. And I think watching him pitch those 3 perfect innings in the West Division clincher Friday was huge for this team. I feel like a lot of people just discounted the importance of Tigert and Molina because they hadn't pitched very well. And they're like, all right, well, we're going to have to get them out of the rotation. These guys are still going to be really important pieces. And Mason was back, and he was right. So hopefully that continues. This week, like, wins and losses don't matter all that much. But trying to get in the right mindset, I think, is for a few guys, like a Kendall Diggs, like a Wehiwa Aloy. Tigert, definitely. Hagen's going to be fine. Whatever they have him do, I think he's going to be just fine. We've seen that over the last 13 starts. You remember the first one, he didn't pitch very well on opening day, and he's been lights out ever since. So he's like the last thing anybody would worry about. It's some of those other guys I mentioned that I think that they're concerned would be the right idea, the right word.
Phil Elson with us live from Hoover, Alabama. You're so right about Tigert and Molina, but I think one thing this A&M series possibly provided is the identity of a fourth starter. And you say, what do you mean? Well, when you get into a regional and you have a game you didn't maybe plan on having to play, or you get into Omaha, hopefully eventually, there's going to be a moment where you're going to need someone that hasn't been one of your 3 starters to potentially start a game. I thought last weekend maybe provided some confidence and some insight as to how you might handle that situation if you find yourself there somewhere in this postseason.
Yeah. I mean, I think they were planning on Gage Wood being one of the starters for the last 2-3 weeks. It's just a matter of they were giving Brady and Mason a little extra time to try to work through what they were trying to work through, and Woods looked really good. I thought he was impressive against A&M. You know, to go 5 innings in your first SEC start and only allow 3 runs is impressive, but to do it against that team in that ballpark, especially considering that, you know, he allows a 2-run homer in the first inning. Only one of those runs were earned because of a rare error for Stovall, and then just 1 run the next 4 innings and kept him in the game. I mean, you know, he's the main reason why the Hogs came from behind against Mississippi State with that big 6-run comeback a Sunday before, because he came out of the pen and stabilized things. But you know, that one of the things when he was one of the more effective relievers for this team. So if you move him into the rotation, which I think is what's happening right now, well, you're going to have somebody else step into that void as a very important reliever, and that's where maybe Tigert can get back to being a productive part of the club. I wonder about him as a starter for 4 or 5 innings, just because he has trouble commanding his fastball, and an inning or 2, maybe that could work. So I mean that's really the important thing that I'm focusing on this week, because I like Gage as a starter, but I also really like him as a reliever. I mean, he's been a Swiss Army knife as a pitcher. Mm-hmm. He's inherited bases loaded in the 9th inning with nobody out. He started a game. He's come into for long relief when the team needs somebody to stabilize things, and now he's a starting pitcher. But you got to replace that piece of relief pitching he was doing, because for as important as a starting pitcher is, man, sometimes your bullpen is even more important, and I think that's been on display the last couple of weeks.
Phil, you mentioned the importance of maybe getting Brady Tigert back in rhythm. What about Will McIntyre? We've seen Mac as an important part of that bullpen in postseason play as anybody. How do you think that he kind of gets back into the role we presume him to have this upcoming postseason?
You know, for Will, a very important thing is for his cutter to be doing what he wants it to do, and for it to be a pitch that he throws for strikes, and then if he throws it out of the strike zone, gets swings and misses. And he didn't throw it for strikes in the game that he pitched on Thursday in the 1-0 loss. He only faced the one batter, but then he just had too much of the strike zone. It didn't have very good location. He's not a pitcher that can get away with making too many mistakes. When he was when he was getting a lot of outs, and his ERA was in the mid-ones, and he looked like the best reliever in the SEC for the first month and a half of his season, a lot of people were saying things like, man, I love watching Will McIntyre pitch because he's a pitcher and doesn't just blow guys away. Well, if you're going to pitch like that, if you're going to be a pitcher and not a hard thrower, which he really isn't, then you have to have really fine command. You have to be able to throw the ball to spots, and he was doing that then, and hasn't necessarily been the case for the last, I'd say, about 3 weeks to 4 weeks. He did have one really good outing against Mississippi State where he did that. So it sounds so easy sometimes to say, well, you got to be able to throw strikes. Well, you got to be able to command your stuff. I just think it's a lot more difficult than that, and I think that's on display with Will. We
saw Ty Wilmsmeyer get 3 hits over the weekend at A&M. Who's a bat in the lineup that, past the Stovalls and the Holtz and the Aloys in the lineup, who's a bat that needs to get hot that would make a difference in a postseason run in your mind?
Well, I mean, the obvious one would be Diggs. You didn't mention his name, and you just need a run producer in the middle of the lineup somehow, and that's what Hudson White's turned into. That's a thing that I think this team was really lacking. Was a batter that, was in the middle of the lineup that you just knew was going to produce runs. That's what Kendall Diggs was last year. That's why he always hit 4th, 5th, or 6th, and that's where he was mostly this year. And you can see he's up and down the batting order right now because we don't know what it is that he's doing well. Is it a matter of getting on base and setting the table up for somebody behind him, or can he still be the guy who he was last year where he's driving the ball and knocking in runs and hitting 3-run homers, which was his specialty last year? So Diggs is one of them, but if that doesn't happen, I think you need some more run production from Ben McLaughlin. I really like Ben as a hitter. Sometimes I wish he would. I don't want to put it in these terms, but swing for the fences a little bit more. Just be more of a run producer in the middle of the lineup, and that's where he's been hitting. Because I haven't seen as many RBIs from him as I guess I expected for someone who seems to be such an advanced hitter and you're playing that position at first base. But I mean, that's been the main issue for this team. Is not really. It's not a matter of they don't hit. It's a matter of taking advantage of the opportunities when they're there for you, and for the most part, right now it's Hudson White's that's taking that advantage. Holt every once in a while, Stovall too, but if you can get 1 or 2 more guys that you feel are consistent run producers, and it's guys that have done it before too, McLaughlin and certainly Diggs. I'd say those 2 are really important bats.
Bama and South Carolina, one of them Arkansas's opponent tomorrow. That's pretty much in the heart of halftime today. Are you going over there to do the show, or how are you going to watch that game today? And will the team be over there watching Bama and South Carolina?
Yeah, I know the coaches will be watching. I don't know if the whole team will make it over there, but all the games are watchable. I mean, the SEC network carries everything, and it's all there. And I've learned it's not the best idea to do a radio show while there's a baseball game being played in the background with all the music and all the sounds that go along with it. So I'll stay in the hotel, but I'll keep the game on, and I'll be watching it as closely as I can.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.